Yo man, it's Sheep Blaster, and today I've got 3 books that changed the way that I view the world, but these are fiction books, so I'm not going to talk about any like non-fiction here. It's just fiction, and I think fiction is like really important for reading because it gives you like a new perspective on the world. You are reading the thoughts of another character, and yes, it's fiction, but you still get like a different perspective on literally everything, and I just really like reading fiction. I do enjoy like some non-fiction books, but most of the time I prefer fiction. So the first one I'm going to talk about is The Architect's Apprentice, and this was recommended to me by my old English teacher. I went and revisited her in Thailand, and I just asked her like, what are some books that you would recommend, and she put this on the list, and I really liked it. I think because it wasn't anything to do with the story. The story was really good, but I think it was the setting and the environment that this book was set in. It was set in a really long time ago when things weren't so good, you know? And it's set in a time period that just gave me like a new perspective on the world. Like, wow, those guys don't really have electricity, you know? And I guess it's like not really like a main theme in the book or anything, but I think it was just a really good book, and for some reason it changed my perspective on the world. I think it's also just seeing someone else work really hard and kind of go from nothing to something just kind of gave me like hope. So the next book is called Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis. He's the same guy who wrote American Psycho. Everyone knows that book. Everyone knows the movie. I like this book because, one, it really reminded me of my private school days, like in high school. I went to a private school in Thailand, and this book is like where really, really rich kids hang out, basically, like what they do when they hang out. Like they go to parties and they do drugs, duh. But like just seeing like their materialism and like the shallowness of like their conversations and everything, it really like reminded me of my old times back in Thailand, of like going to someone's house and they would brag about their dad's new car or something. And while I was never rich, right? I wasn't rich, but I tried to look rich because everyone else looked rich. And I think reading back on like this book reminded me of those times when I actually cared about things that were really shallow. And now obviously I know that money isn't everything. It is important if you want to have like a good life, but you don't exactly need it in order to be happy. But another thing I liked about the book is how fucked up everyone was. Like genuinely, like I think there was like some like fucked up like murders and like tortures, and people would like fap to it, and you know, it was really, really messed up. Like they would do like really messed up things. And it also reminded me of like the stories I would hear about other people doing fucked up shit, like back in Thailand. Like there are some like really fucked up things I've heard from like people doing things to other people and paying those people off to not talk about it, but they still talked about it. And it just brought me back to like my old self's kind of vision of the world. But it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. So I mean, some people might not. They might think, well, Jamie read it, she said, oh, it was too fucked up. And yeah, maybe I like dark books and stuff, but yeah. Last book that I think was really, really important for just the way I viewed the world was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And the reason I want to say that this book is probably the most important is because it kind of introduced me to thinking about God. It was kind of like an introduction to like, is there like a higher being? And this is something that I never really thought about before. I mean, yeah, I've thought about it, but I never actually explored it. I never went down the path of like, okay, I should read the Bible and like do all this like research on God and that kind of stuff. But just by reading that book, it made me realize that there probably is like some kind of higher power. And even if you don't necessarily believe in a specific religion, I think it's important to understand that there probably is like some higher power. And it's kind of comforting to think that like everything's happening for a reason or something like that. And a bonus that I want to add on to this is actually Life of Pi. Yeah, it just made me think like, holy shit, man, there's got to be some kind of God. Like, even though I know that the story was not real, it was like fiction, it was still very eye-opening to the world around me, and just kind of changed the way I looked at things. Like, if I have, like, I'm gonna show you what I'm looking at. Like, you can see those clouds, and I can see them too, and I think, wow, that's fucking gorgeous. Someone made that. Some entity, some higher being, he made that just specifically so I could look at it and appreciate it. One of my favorite quotes from The Alchemist is, maybe God created the desert so man could appreciate the date tree. If you, I don't know, what's like a modern day example? If you had like broken plumbing for a while, and for like 2 or 3 weeks you only showered with cold water, when you get that hot water, you're gonna appreciate it so much more because you've not had it for such a long time. So yeah, those are like 3.5, 4 books that I honestly changed the world, changed the way I looked at the world. And yeah, I don't see anyone really making videos about like fiction books really. So yeah, all right, peace.